A lot of talking heads are saying that Central America has been violent for a long time, so violence can't possibly be the reason that people are fleeing in larger numbers now. We're here to tell you why that's wrong.
Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, also known as the Northern Triangle, are three of the most violent countries in the world. For the last 4 years, Honduras has had the dishonor of having the world's highest murder rate. El Salvador and Guatemala are number 3 and number 8.
In Honduras, homicides tripled from 2005 to 2012, and its murder rate is 12 times the international average. 130,000 Salvadorans were displaced in 2012 alone in a country of only 6 million people, and nearly as many people are dying each day as were killed at the height of their civil war.
This region is literally as dangerous as a war zone. But if Central America wasn't always this violent, how did we get here?
In some ways, it goes all the way back to the failure to really dismantle clandestine networks supplying weapons for the armed conflicts in El Salvador and Guatemala in the 90s.
In 2000, because of gains made in intercepting drugs in the Caribbean, the cartels began eyeing the land route through Central America.
The 2009 coup in Honduras and the chaos that followed, including the haphazard dissolution and reconstruction of government institutions, allowed for the swift infiltration of government entities by organized crime, the wholesale corruption of the country's security forces and police, and the rise of politicians for sale.
You have to keep in mind that Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala together are smaller than the state of Oregon. So you can imagine how a coup in Honduras would end up affecting its neighbors.
Flush with illicit resources, political protection, and control over law enforcement, the criminal organizations are ascendant. Not surprisingly, violence has continued to rise steadily in El Salvador and Guatemala and spiked dramatically in Honduras.
But why are kids in particular in the crossfire?
Street gangs that developed in the late 90s are now working with the big boys of organized crime, carrying out assassinations, extortions, and the forced recruitment of children as young as 6 years old in poor neighborhoods throughout the region, increasingly using join-or-die tactics.
Schools are ground zero for this type of recruitment, and teachers that try to protect their students are killed. There are no real witness protection systems in these countries, so if you witness a crime or you are the victim of the crime, your only choice is to move.
If you don't, you know you're likely to be targeted long before the case gets to trial, if it's even investigated at all. These cycles all feed impunity in the region.
And eventually, people figure out that no matter how many times you move within your country to a new neighborhood or a new city, you won't be safe.
And eventually people figure out it's not bad luck that the police didn't investigate their case. It's how things are.
And so people leave. They flee to Panama, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Mexico, and the United States.
And when they end up on our border, in our country, they deserve to be protected and cared for within a system that acknowledges the victimization, violence, corruption, and trauma that they're fleeing.
We have rescued Irish children from the famine, Russian children from religious persecution, Cambodian children from genocide, Sudanese children from the Civil War.
This is a history and tradition that we should be proud of, and one that we must uphold.